The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 11 rankings debate. Sorry for the delay, because the normal time we went to go film, I had no voice. So now I have a part of a voice back, so we can do the ranking show. Unfortunately, Gary and Thorne could not make it work with his schedule. It was a thorn in his side, so it's just going to be me and Jake Ciely of The Athletic. This is the latest we've ever done one of these shows, I think.
I think so, because you're the king of getting it out early. I thought you were going to say, unfortunately, it's only Jake today.
No, people loved it. It's been so infrequent that we've had, I think it's been like 7-8 weeks since it's just been you and I having our back and forth. So, you know, sometimes it just needs to be a solo date, not a triple date.
Yeah, no, we don't need the third wheel. We don't need to talk about the Seattle Seahawks tight ends not being a thing.
Oh, we will talk about them. It's all about which Seattle Seahawks tight end you can accurately choose. It's been Nick Vannett 2 weeks in a row, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be Ed Dixon this time.
That is true.
It just depends on who Russell Wilson is feeling on Thursday night. But before we get into the rankings, I want to let everyone know, please subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience, audio version in the race for 10 million listens and downloads, even if you're just watching on the YouTube channel. Please go subscribe to the audio as well, whether you're on iTunes or whether you have an Android. You can get the Pat Mayo Experience. Download it as many times as you like. If you just subscribe and download once, it's good enough for me. If you want to leave a rating and review, preferably a positive one, even better. And a reminder, I'll be live Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Gary and will be back for that. Tim Andacust will be there as well, taking your questions. So always go ahead with that. If you want to get in a draw for 20 DK dollars, please smash the like button, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and give me a stat line on Josh Reynolds this week. Receptions, yardage, touchdowns, and targets. I'm very curious to see how he is going to shake out, because he's one of the toughest guys to rank coming into the week. But we'll get to him when we get to wide receivers. We'll start with running backs. Jake, currently in the rankings, I have Chris Thompson, Chris Carson, Royce Freeman, and James Conner. Out, I have Ronald Jones, Donta Foreman, who was activated off the PUP list today, and Darren Sproles, who's going to miss a few more weeks. Le'Veon Bell not coming back this season. So at the very top of the rankings, 1 second. There's that voice for you. Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Christian McCaffrey, Kamara, Zeke, Saquon, Connor, David Johnson. I think those are the big 9 that are absolute must-starts. And then the guys that you're most likely starting, because they're also good: Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Mark Ingram. That's a Fantasy Pros consensus rankings, because I do not rank Mark Ingram. Tariq Cohen, Deion Lewis, Marlon Mack, Tevin Coleman, Adrian Peterson, and Alex Collins. Let's start with Alex Collins at number 20. We don't know who's playing quarterback for the Ravens as of yet. It still could be Flacco. John Harbaugh has said he doesn't need to practice in order to play, which probably makes sense for a guy who's been there for a decade, knows the playbook by now. But do you think there's a chance it could be Robert Griffin and not Lamar Jackson?
Oh, certainly. And because the biggest thing we look at here is, do they still think they're playoff contenders? And if they still think they're playoff contenders, which is very possible, they're 4-5, they're still in the hunt. I think that you could see them turn to Robert Griffin first and just say, you know what, we're still going for the playoffs. And now maybe we see even more Lamar Jackson on the field, but kind of like the Taysom Hill situation where he's getting more snaps, but it's still Robert Griffin is the lead quarterback. So I'm grabbing Lamar Jackson everywhere I possibly can. Robert Griffin's rookie season was over 50 yards a game rushing on average. He actually hit that mark like 6 or 7 times and then some. So if you look at it, that's what we're hoping for with Lamar Jackson. We're hoping for a QB1 with the rushing upside, but I don't know that it's definitely going to happen. I don't know that it isn't Robert Griffin first.
Now, I don't think it matters whether it's Jackson or whether it's Griffin. I think it's good news for Alex Collins regardless, because I think that you see them turn to a more run-heavy offense. If that's going to be the case, it's going to be Collins over Buck Allen. You might see some 2 running back sets, but I think they're going to have an emphasis on the run, and the running lane should be a bit more open when you have a mobile quarterback under center.
Yeah, and the big thing is, too, I was looking at it, I pulled this up, is Mr. Nick Candlelight Vigil. Nick Vigil, since he exited for the Bengals, they've been giving up an extra yard per carry, giving up 2.5 more yards per catch, more explosive plays, doubling in both running and pass. Actually, rushing, it's almost 4 times as much. So it's like Nick Vigil is like, okay, who's this guy? But apparently he's been a core of that defense, similar to Khalil Mack's loss for the Bears. And I'm not comparing Vigil to Mack. I'm just saying when you see certain players, sometimes we don't always know all these players because we don't play IDP, or we don't know the impact of all these teams because there's like a lot of people to pay attention to. Vigil's loss was a big one for the Bengals. So to your point, whoever it is at quarterback is going to open up lanes because you're going to soften the defense. And this defense has already been softened since they did a good job against them the first time around. But basically since then, and since Vigil left this defense, they've been gashed by almost every running back they faced.
So with Alex Collins at number 20, do you think he's a better play than, let's say, someone like Adrian Peterson, who I have at 19, going up against a pretty formidable Texans run defense? It's just, I know that the volume regardless is probably going to be there for Peterson. Whether he produces, I don't know. And with Collins, it's always a bit dicey. Now, this is a more favorable situation if you have Griffin or if you have Lamar Jackson in at quarterback. So do you think that Collins would be a better play than AP?
I actually have Collins at 21 in PPR and AP down at 29. I'm not huge on AP this week for the matchup. And I think that whether it's Chris Thompson coming back or it's Capri Bibbs again, this looks like one of those games where we should see a little bit more passing running back involvement in this game, which of course probably just means Adrian Peterson is going to run for 120 and a touchdown.
That's usually what happens with Adrian Peterson. When you don't want to play him, he then goes off in the situation. Let's scroll back up to the top 10. I have James Conner coming in at number 8. Would you play? We don't know for sure that he's going to play it. He's probably going to pass concussion protocol and play. Do you think that they scale back his snaps at all and play Jalen Samuels a little bit more? Or if Conner plays, he's Conner like he is every week?
I think he's Conner like he is every week, but it might be a 5 to 10% drop off where, I mean, look at the truth. Samuels has barely been used up until just last week. And even before that, Ridley was barely in the, it was just James Conner. It was similar to the workload we've seen from this team before. So I think you might see a little bit more mixed in, especially for the concerns this team now has. And they don't have Le'Veon Bell coming back if James Conner goes down. I mean, we always say the Pittsburgh Steelers running back does a good job, but I don't think anybody out there is kidding themselves and saying Jalen Samuels is going to step in and put up James Conner's numbers, putting up Le'Veon Bell's numbers. So I think it's fair. I'm actually a little even behind. I have him at 10. I mean, not that far behind, but it's with that concern of maybe is it more of a 20-touch game than a 25-touch game? Do they have the lead? And that's the bigger concern I have, is if they get to a big lead because Blake Bortles' turnover machine shows up, do they just run out the clock with Samuels and Ridley and not Conner to keep Conner healthy?
I suppose that's in the cards, but we can't rule out that there's some sort of weird power that Jacksonville has over the Steelers team.
I mean, that's very true too. You know what the more interesting thing was is not even this, is I have two guys almost completely flipped in your rank. I know you don't like to spend a lot of time on the top 10, but I have David Johnson 3rd and Kareem Hunt 8th.
I can see it. I mean, I can see it. I love the way that David Johnson was used last week, but we might see less of him in the passing game, more of him in the running game this week, just because the potential game script is 4-point favorites, and very rarely are you going to see Arizona as a more than a field goal favorite in any game. And then as it pertains to Kareem Hunt, it's just the Rams' run defense isn't very good anyway. I just want as much exposure to that game as possible. That's why I throw out Josh Reynolds as a potential stat line. Just I think if you have the only game of the season that's a 63-point game total, that the more guys in that game you can get, the better.
I don't disagree with that. It is at the highest over-under of history, isn't it? I think that it hit the mark. But if you're looking at this, I'm looking at the guys that I have in front of Kareem Hunt as Christian McCaffrey's going against the Lions. And the big thing is they've actually played better against the run since they traded for Damon Harrison, but they've been gashed in the passing game and by pass-catching running backs, and they're still not great against the run. So I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey's volume, Saquon Barkley against the Bucs, Kamara against the Eagles, who you pass-catching running backs can do better than. And it's still a tough matchup, but I'm not worried about Kamara. It's just more so the people in front of him. I'm starting Hunt, like you said, like you're starting everybody here, and that's why I said we don't spend a lot of time on it. After the last week use with Spencer Ware, I don't know that the Chiefs aren't starting to think long-term too, is like, let's make sure Kareem Hunt is healthy for the playoffs.
Well, I wasn't too bummed out by Kareem Hunt's volume. If he had just found the end zone, it would have been a pretty nice week, and Ware stole that touchdown away from him, and boom, he has a bit of a mediocre week. But as long as the volume persists for him in this game, this is one that I think that they're going to go out of their way to try to really put the hammer down, and they're underdogs. So you would expect to see Hunt on the field more than someone like Spencer Ware because of his involvement in the passing game. So I'm going to retain Hunt at number. I really like David Johnson. It's nothing against him. He's just number 9. You can move him up a little bit. You can move him. I wouldn't move him down any lower than 9. You could definitely make the case to move him up. But those top 9 are good for me. This next little tier I find ultra confusing of you have real decisions you could potentially make here between starting and sitting guys if you started with good running backs to begin with. So Fournette, Cook, Mixon, and Aaron Jones, 10 through 13. Do you think they're in the right order?
I have, which is Fournette, Cook. So I see part of the things, dude, I kept waiting for your rankings to be set. And then I was like, oh, wait, he hasn't sent them because they're already up on the site. Yeah. So I suddenly forgot to check till just a little bit. So you have Fournette, Cook, Mixon. I have Fournette, Mixon, Cook.
The matchup, the matchup for Mixon against Baltimore on paper looks bad, but they've just been gashed the last 2 times out by elite running backs, by McCaffrey and by James Conner. Although the return of Gio Bernard hurts that split a little bit more for the passing game. Nothing on the ground, but in the passing game where Mixon was really setting a floor for himself. And what I saw from Dalvin Cook before the bye week, if that's the guy that he's going to be, he's getting all the touches.
He is, but you're still going to see at least 5, 7, 8 for, I don't know why I skipped 6, but you're going to see a handful for Latavius Murray. Then it's the Bears. People were asking me this in the chat on The Athletic today, and they're like, are you going to trust Dalvin Cook and me? Like, well, you saw how good he looked before the bye. They made sure he was 100%. Dalvin Cook, I said, if we asked this question last year, and we said Dalvin Cook in the middle of being healthy, or the year before, while he was in the healthy run, and you said he's facing the Bears, you'd be like, he's starting no matter what. But like you said, when you start to get in these conversation and names, it's still the Bears. It's still the Bears on the road. It's still Khalil Mack is playing as of right now. I would just start Mixon Fournette ahead of him. But if you wanted to go Cook, I mean, basically you should be starting all these guys anyway.
True. Aaron Jones, 13, too high. I'm finally buying into the hype just a little bit. I know people want me to rank him even higher than this, but
yes.
How high would you rank Aaron Jones?
No, I think this is a fair spot. I think right there I have him right back to back with Dion Lewis. But the biggest thing is McCarthy's finally using him the majority of the time. Like the snap count, the share wasn't even close last week. So we finally have that. You still have the goal line concern with Jamal Williams. And, it's Thursday night. It could go any different direction. But yeah, I think Aaron Jones should be there. I think now that he's in the fringe RB1 conversation, that's fine. The problem I have is somebody threw out the tweet the other day who said, who would you rather have talent-wise, Le'Veon Bell or Aaron Jones? And it was like, stop, come on.
I mean, the advanced numbers really support Aaron Jones in this, although it's a very minuscule sample, which is really funny because data people are all about the long samples. Small samples mean absolutely nothing, except for when they want to prove a point about something that might not be there. Then stats can tell you whatever you want.
That's why 50-50. This is, we talk about this every year. This is why you use both. You use your brain. You make an intelligent decision by watching film and using stats. Because just what you said, numbers can be turned into anything. I do it every single year when I'm trying to make deals. I use the numbers I want to use to try and make my argument to make a trade. I have a perfect practice in doing it.
Do I have Tevin Coleman too high at 18 against the Cowboys?
I don't think so. Tevin Coleman, I actually have him higher than you do. Tevin Coleman has finally started to catch on of late.
I just worry that he's not that good.
And that's a fair point. We've been saying that all year now is, Tevin Coleman, can you imagine what he can do if he gets all the touches? And he gets all the touches and they're like, well, Tevin Coleman's not doing that good. Well, maybe it's Eno Smith. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. Well, wait till next year till he gets his contract. Why? He's on a terrific offense and he's got a very good team around him and he's not – it looks better the past couple games. It's like basically the 2 games of recent. He's looking better. I still am not confident enough to say he's a definitive RB1, but in a 16 bye week, he's knocking on that door for me.
So Cohen, Lewis, Mack, Coleman, Peterson, Collins. I'm going to flip Collins with Peterson. You would have Peterson way down. Where would you insert Peterson into my rankings? Because the next guys up are Carry-On, Lamar Miller, Rocket Richard. Still have enough voice for that one. Philip Lindsay, Fantasy Pro says Doug Martin ranked, Jordan Howard, Mike Davis. We'll talk about the Seattle situation here in a second, but how far down would you put him in my rankings?
In yours, actually kind of right around where I have him, just maybe a little bit higher for yours, is behind Jordan Howard in front of Mike Davis. Okay,
I can get behind that. So drop AP down to number 26.
Yeah, that's where I put him. It's just... I don't know. If you want to keep him in front of Jordan Howard, I don't have that big of a problem with it. I hate Doug Martin, and I'm with you finally. By the way, I am on the Mark Ingram bandwagon at this point now, finally.
Really?
Well, look at it. It's because now we're at the point where, and I talked about this on the podcast earlier this week, we're at the point now where it's either you just start Mark Ingram or he's not on your team because you can't try and pick and choose because then you miss a game like last week. But if you keep playing him the 2 weeks before that, it was 3-7. So I'm with you now. Mark Ingram, I'm tired of your ass.
This is how you end up in worst place. You become the guy that only performs when no one is on him.
Exactly. Well, that's why. So I'm kind of on Doug Martin this week because I love the matchup. And Doug Martin, truthfully, for everything, like I hate Doug Martin too, but over the past 3 games, since he's been that lead in the backfield, he's performed serviceably well. You were talking about double-digit average points per game in PPR. So I don't hate him.
You know what's funny? Doug Martin is getting all the goal line work for the Raiders and has failed to outscore Rocket Richard in 2 of those 3 games.
That's because the Raiders can't get to the end zone.
Well, I mean, because they always give the ball to Doug Martin when they get in close. They tried it 3 times last week, not a success. And they tried to get him to leap the pile, not a success. Like, he's dust. The guy sucks.
Well, the offensive line's doing him no favors either. To be fair, like I can't believe, why are you making me like be an apologist for Doug Martin?
I was gonna say, didn't realize you love Doug Martin so much.
He's getting hit in the backfield on half of his touches. He's basically, did you watch the Giants game, right? The Giants are insistent on giving Saquon the Barkley back as far back from the line of scrimmage as possible. They're like, hey, you go 7 yards till you get to the line of scrimmage because you can do it. It's fun to watch. But at least with that is Doug Martin's just getting hit in the backfield. Like he's getting the touches from under center. It's just the offensive line can't do him any favors.
You see, what the Raiders should do is go out and hire a smaller back than Doug Martin in order to be their goal line feature back. And his name can be Doug the Pug. There we go. That's a better running back for the Raiders right there around the goal line.
I like it. I thought you were going to legitimately say like C.J. Anderson or something.
No. Is C.J. Anderson he'll end up on a team, I would think. He'll probably end up on the Giants.
Oh, God. Because they signed, I didn't even realize that they signed Elijah Penny.
Yeah, he's been on the team for like 6 weeks.
I didn't even realize that.
The only reason I ever know is because I do up the snap counts every week. He always gets like 4% of the snaps.
See, I don't even dig that far. Once you start getting to single-digit snaps, like you're irrelevant. Unless I'm specifically looking for you. Like I got down to Golden Tate because I was looking for Golden Tate last week.
What was it, 26, 29% of the snaps, Golden Tate?
Yeah, but it was, what was it, like 13 or 14 total?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
We'll get to him.
We will. So the rest of the running backs here in this 21 to 30 range, let's talk Seattle. I have Mike Davis at number 27. I have Chris Carson at number 37 and Rashad Penny at number 34. Now, should I flip Davis and Carson because Carson's going to end up starting because he's healthy, but I just worry that he's not healthy enough to get through the entire game.
And that's fair. I have Carson the highest, but he's barely inside the top 30 for me because, look, I don't know what Pete Carroll's going to do. I wish I could tell you. I don't think Pete Carroll knows what he's going to do. Like, I don't even if he told us. I don't think he knows because Chris Carson has been the lead guy when healthy. And then we saw the whole situation from before. He leaves. It's all Mike Davis. Then we see him come back, and Chris Carson's in the game. Rashad Penny's getting touches on the first drive. Carson leaves the game early. And then it's all Mike Davis again. And like Penny barely sees the ball for the rest of the game. And then last week happens and it's like 50. I don't think he knows. And I think we're headed towards a real committee. This is like the Eagles. This is a situation where we just don't want to deal with any of them. But if forced, I still would take Carson because yes, there is that threat of him coming out of the game. And obviously if you're going for floor, then probably Mike Davis. But this team has been consistent in one thing. If Carson is healthy, he's getting the lead touches.
So for this week only, I'm going to continue having Carson the bottom of the 3 only because Mike Davis has been more involved in the receiving game, even when both of them are healthy, that I think that there is that baked-in PPR floor for him. But I'm like you. I'm just kind of throwing my hands up. I don't want to start any of them. But to compare it to the Eagles situation is good, but at the same time, I think I would almost rather start all 3 of the Seattle running backs rather than start any of the Eagles because at least Seattle runs the ball where the Eagles just don't.
Oh, wait, you're not getting caught up in the Josh Adams excitement. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, here's one of my favorite stats of the week that people are throwing out to me. It's like, well, Josh Davis is clearly the guy to play. Only he's getting like 55% of the carries. It's like, yeah, they run the ball 10 times. That's not good.
No, here's the biggest thing about Josh Adams is it's like people pretend like they weren't the Corey Clement guys before that, and they weren't the Wendell Smallwood guys before that, and they weren't the J.J. Like every time the Eagles roll out a new lead running back, everybody's on them like they were like that's what they've been waiting for this entire time. Like it wasn't the guy before that.
I don't know if you can play an Eagles running back, and if you did, I would just play Smallwood.
Nah, I guess I'd roll with Adams only because of the 55%, but I don't care.
Yeah, well, I mean, despite 55% of the carries, he's playing like 27% of the snaps in a game where they're 9-point dogs in New Orleans.
Fair.
I would happen to think that the pass catching back, if that Smallwood, not Clement, would be the guy who's on the field.
Well, and the run defense for the Saints is strong up the middle, so that's fair. You make a valid point there.
I just don't see any upside. Like, I talked earlier this week about Derrick Henry is essentially like kind of better LeGarrette Blount. Josh Adams is like worse than LeGarrette Blount.
I didn't call him LeGarrette Blount. It's funny. I called him. He's the he's the shinier version of Mike Tolbert is what I called him.
Yeah, like the guy's basically unplayable. You're banking on a touchdown. If he scores a touchdown, he might get to 10 points.
Yeah, and if he scores 2, we've definitely got double digit for you. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, fantastic. If he doesn't, he has 0. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. That's a 75-25 split, even last week. And what you would think would have been a perfect run script for Derrick Henry, no, he just got 2 goal line touches.
Yep, and unfortunately for anybody that was desperate enough to start him, it paid off for you.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to that week after week after week. If Chris Thompson plays, which I have him doing right now, it's number 35 in the rankings. If I'm going to drop Peterson, should I bump up Chris Thompson?
I think a little bit. I feel more, put it this way. If he's healthy and his team's ready to roll him out there, I feel better about him than I do any of the Eagles running backs, including Smallwood. I feel better than Royce Freeman coming off an injury and not knowing what they're going to do. I mean, the Broncos are in the same mess. We assume Lindsey's the lead, but what about Freeman and Booker? They used Booker even before Freeman got hurt. So I'd bump him up. I'd probably put him right around Theo Riddick.
I like the way that Theo Riddick has been working out of the slot recently. I think that really solidifies his floor. So I put him behind Riddick, probably behind Barber, probably behind Eckler. So I'd probably put him at number 30, 31.
Eckler's use has gone down.
I think this is going to be one of these games where he really gets involved, though.
Yeah, you have to hope. But if you told me confidence level, even coming off an injury, I'd probably feel a little bit better about Thompson. Because I'm assuming the Redskins aren't bringing him back if he's not ready at this point.
I suppose that's true. I think I'd still roll with Eckler this week as a sort of a wait and see, but I'd sandwich him in between Eckler and Derrick Henry in the Week 11 rankings. Number 31, a guy you can play, but not a guy you really want to play.
Can we get rid of these buys so Derrick Henry's not in the 30s anymore?
I mean, I could just not rank him in the 30s. There's that.
Yeah, how's he not in worst place?
He's close. It's because I don't own him. I've been scorned by everyone who's been in worse place at some point or another. Derrick Henry, I don't think I've actually ever owned him in any league.
Oh, so okay.
So I've never gone through like how awful it is to own him. I just see it from the outside and kind of chuckle.
Just a laugh. That's what I've been doing. I don't own Derrick Henry anywhere. I haven't, and I just laugh at everybody.
Is there anyone from down on this list you think is worth having a conversation about?
I pointed out Jacquizz Rodgers as a potential sleeper this week because if you saw last week, the Giants continue to get gashed on defense against the run, and that's even before Damon Harrison got traded away. And look at what the Buccaneers finally did last week. They woke up and said, oh, look, he was pretty good last year. Peyton Barber continues to be super meh every single week, so maybe we give Jacquizz Rodgers some more work in the passing game. Now, the downside is obviously he literally did nothing in the run game. It was all passing game work. But we are talking about PPR. I think he could be a sleeper for somebody out there that's actually available in a 16 buy.
Yeah, he's sort of like if you were rolling Devontae Booker because you had no one else, and now that Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman are both healthy again, that if you want to drop Booker and play Kiz Rodgers, I got no problem with that. Let's move to receiver. Number 1, I got DeAndre Hopkins coming in. He's a nice steal on DraftKings this week, too. Below $8,000. Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, Odell, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Robert Woods, Brendan Cooks. Both those Rams are right there. Switching into Alshon Jeffrey, Juju, Keenan, T.Y. Hilton, Stefan Diggs coming off the rib injury, Tyler Boyd, Emmanuel Sanders, Mike Evans, Marquez Valdez Scantling, who people in the chat on Monday asked me if they should drop this week because he had such a bad game last week. And then Kenny Golladay. The guys that I have in who are injured right now and expected to play, Kiki Cutie, Deshaun Hamilton, Sammy Watkins, Stefan Diggs, and Marvin Jones out. I have Jamison Crowder, A.J. Green, Torrey Smith, Tywan Taylor, Josh Malone, Chad Williams, Randall Cobb, who has been officially ruled out, as has Martavis Bryant. It doesn't look like Jordy Nelson is going to play this weekend either. In a Giant, who cares? Because no one was playing him anyway. So of the top 20, do you have any nitpicks?
Not really. I'm watching you go through the names, and I'm looking at the same thing because Emmanuel Sanders, I was surprised that people don't have an excitement for him. I don't know what more do you want the guy from a number one, and it should be a good game for him. Same thing with the Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like you talk about it. People are so reactionary, like, oh my gosh, one down game and Randall Cobb is out. I really don't understand why people are so, well, we deal with this every year though.
This is true. So in the 21 to 30 range, I think this is where the decision making becomes a bit dicier. Corey Davis is number 21. Listen, I've believed in the volume all year. I've been a Corey Davis backer, but I don't think he's the most trustworthy guy in the world. As isn't Allen Robinson, who's number 22. Then you got like Tyrell Williams, Sterling Shepard, Murray, Marv Jones, Sammy Watkins, Cortland Sutton, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Ridley. I think that Cortland Sutton is the really interesting one here. Only because in the first week, everyone got all jazzed up to use him. I had him as my number one waiver wire pickup this week because a lot of people dropped him after that 1 week. Yep. He should be fine here, though.
He should be, but this is one of those situations where we might be putting too much the talent and the opportunity, and it doesn't always match up. Sometimes these wide receivers, like, let's go back. We're still dealing with the year of the Odell Beckham draft class of wide receivers affecting everybody still today. And the fact that wide receivers take longer than running backs, tight ends take longer than wide receivers, but there's a learning process. And heck, you go to Golden Tate's situation, which I know we'll get to, and is a different one, but there's people who have been in this league for a very long time that go to a new team and can't adjust immediately. So you have somebody that's a rookie coming into the NFL. It's not a surprise that it might take there. You remember just a few years ago, Pat, it was the third year wide receiver breakout. Like, that was a thing. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew you just waited for the third year. So there's a ton of excitement for Cortland Sutton, and it's warranted, especially when we talk about his talent. And now the opportunity is there. But we kind of have to play this game where maybe if your trade deadline hasn't passed, you still sell high on the guy, especially if he has a good game, because I like it. I just don't know he's going to be a top 30 wide receiver the rest of the way.
I think that he's going to be right around there. I was actually quite encouraged with the volume that he saw 2 weeks ago against the Texans. He just couldn't come through. I believe it was 6 catches, 9 targets. Not so bad.
Right.
Like, if he's going to do that every time out and generate 9 targets, I'll roll the dice on that.
I don't have a problem with that in PPR. I think in non-PPR, a little bit more concerning. And again, this is going to be a very
do people even play non-PPR anymore?
They still do. We're actually getting a very nice cross-section of all three now. You should just half-point PPR. Just play half point. At least it's a good medium. Like, perfect example, go back to Saquon Barkley that I brought up before. Yeah, that 7-yard screen that he caught in the flat and got a negative 5-yard loss, still got you a half point. That makes sense.
Suppose. So you're about to finish on Cortland Sutton?
No, I'm with you. I think top 30, and that's why I said it, because he's right in that range. There's a lot of people out there who, as soon as this happened, said, oh, he's a definitive wide receiver too. And that was his upside. We still have to remember, Case Keenum's the quarterback. This offense has had some struggles here and there. They don't have great matchups every single week the rest of the way. So I can see a lot of wide receiver 2 weeks, and I can see a handful of wide receiver 4 weeks, and that's why I think that 30-ish number is a good one for him.
31 is John Brown. Let's talk Ravens receivers, because I have Michael Crabtree buried a bit, Willie Snead buried. This is assuming that Joe Flacco is not going to play, so you're going to have Griffin or you're going to have Lamar Jackson. I would actually be far more encouraged if Griffin played for the receivers rather than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I would too. And I think that's going to be, hopefully we find out, or at least you're ready on your computer to do so. We find out right at the morning, Sunday morning, when we get the inactives of who's actually going to start at quarterback. But yes, if it's Jackson, I would downgrade the wide receivers. This team has started to run the ball a little bit more anyway. If you see Robert Griffin, I'd say you can feel good about it. I mean, honestly, if you're talking about it, I think Griffin helps John Brown. I think if Flacco somehow under center, he still helps Crabtree, and then Jackson just hurts everybody. I think that's how you have to look at it.
I still think that if it's Flacco or if it's Griffin, John Brown would be my preferred Ravens receiver, just because of the upside that he presents in any situation. And even with Lamar Jackson, if Lamar can buy some time in the backfield, open it up, extend a play, hey, there's John Brown. He's 60 yards down the field. Hopefully Lamar can.
Yeah, but his targets have dropped off precipitously of late.
Sure, but it's not like Crabtree's setting the world on fire either. If one of them is going to have a big game, I would imagine it's going to be John Brown. No,
see, here's the biggest problem is we have the freaking leech, Willie Snead, just stealing all his little bit of targets every single week, just ruining it for everybody.
True, but I think that without Flacco, I think that would lean more towards Brown over someone like Snead.
Do you think he would be up for that if we told him that we're just going to start calling him the leech?
The leech? Well, I mean, I always enjoyed the need for Snead, although I have no need now.
No need for speed. Need for Snead. That's Did you play that? Were you one of those ones that in that whole from the window to the wall genre, like the Little John era?
I mean,
Need for Speed games.
I feel like that was the last era of video games that I would have played.
That was hot stuff, man. Drag racing down the street. That was big time.
Yeah, then you can just go buy your own car and go do it in real life. It's more dangerous that way, but way more fun.
No, I had more fun in the game, especially if you got the steering wheel for one of your rich friends.
No. What you need to do is go buy a car, go drag race, get some money on it, and then like have to dodge people when you can't pay because you have no nitrous.
No nitrous.
The
tank burst.
Yeah, exactly. So 31, John Brown, Didi at 32, Lockett at 33, Moncrief at 34, Sanu, Golden Tate, Crabtree, Anthony Miller, Deshaun Jackson, Kiki Cutie at number 40, Golden Tate, number 36. He's in the perfect spot to light up the Saints if he can get on the field. Do we think that he plays? I asked Raybon this on tomorrow's, as it will come out, DraftKings show, set an over-under on snap percentage for Golden Tate. He set it at 60. And I think I would lean right around that number. I'd pray for an over if I owned Golden Tate.
I would pray for an over, but I would take the under. I don't know if we're going to see that big of a jump after, like, they used him as their wide receiver 4, and that's what I was alluding to before with the Sutton situation. Is Demaryius Thomas came in, hit the ground running, and he spent a lot of time, as they said, working with DeAndre Hopkins. He was ready to roll. He looked fine with the Texans. If you still saw it though, 3 targets, 3 receptions, and he had a day. 3 targets. Even if you are acclimated to the offense, even if you have the playbook, if you ever had, it doesn't necessarily mean you're also going to step in and be that guy. What we have to pray for is not even just the snaps. We have to pray that he gets 15 to 20% of the target share too. And that's really what we were saying is, like, we come over from this. You downgrade Zach Ertz, who was around 27%. You downgrade Alshon Jeffrey a little bit. He replaces Nelson Aguilar. So Golden Tate pretty much holds most of his value. But last week, I don't know if it's just completely, he's just not ready to play with this offense. It's that complicated. I don't know. What you said is pray. I don't know how you can say he's going to get 60%. When you said that, it was an easy under for me.
Well, I mean, they spent all week incorporating that hook and ladders play with Golden Tate instead of teaching him the offense.
They had 2 weeks with him, and he still only was treated as the 4th wide receiver.
Yeah, it was really strange because Aguilar played like 80% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Jordan Matthews played 61%. I think that he can get up to that Jordan Matthews level now just because they're going to need him if they want any sort of firepower to keep up with the Saints.
I would hope so. And the best part about it is if he gets some slot work, it's the Saints. You want your slot receivers against the Saints. They're one of the 3-4 best teams to have slot receivers against. But I don't know. Even if he's out there, though, what if he does? Let's turn it the other way. The question for you, if he even gets that, let's say he gets 65%, he just takes the Jordan Matthews and he's fine. What if he only plays outside? What if they keep Nelson Aguilar in the slot the entire game?
Then that's suboptimal, obviously, but I think I'd just rather take the talent of Tate over Aguilar and just hope they come up with creative ways to get him the ball. It's not like they're going to move Golden Tate around the offense. It's like the Eagles run a lot of motion.
No, you're right. And Golden Tate's played outside more than people think. It's just, I want to see a good share of his work coming out the slot still.
If it wasn't because of the bye weeks and it wasn't because of this game in particular, which has a 55-point game total, I'd be far more bearish on Golden Tate. But I think if you have him, there are enough guys you could safely play over him. Obviously, the rankings reflect that. But when we start getting into listen, I like Anthony Miller, but he's not safe. Deshaun Jackson's not safe. Kiki's not safe. Right. Maurice Harris isn't safe. Like, just give me exposure to that game and give me Golden Tate, who I know is good.
You threw one name out there that, I don't know, if Jamison Crowder doesn't play, I feel better about Maurice Harris at this point.
Didn't we just do this with Maurice Harris last week with no Jamison Crowder?
Yeah. And he had a fine game.
He was like 5 for 51.
Yeah, that's a double-digit PPR points. It's a hell of a lot more than Golden Tate did.
It is. That's fair, but I'm hoping that we get a more expansive role for Golden Tate this time around in Week 11 against the Saints. I know the matchup is actually probably pretty good for Maurice Harris if Crowder sits again, only because there's so much funneling to the passing game for whoever plays against the Texans. But I just don't like that Washington offense. I'd just much rather have a piece of the Eagles offense. And
that's fair. And you did to analyze what the statement was is I feel safer about Harris. If I'm going for upside, I'm definitely going for Tate. I just said, if your entire roster is loaded from top to bottom, and you're just like, I just need points, I'd actually plug in Harris. until we see Tate.
Sure, I think that is dependent on your roster construction. I think independently, I would rather roll the dice on the upside of Tate versus the floor of Maurice Harris.
That's fair.
In a one-on-one situation, I don't mind Harris, tell you the truth. I have him at 41. Josh Reynolds, I have at 42. Too high or too low?
Yeah, I think that's actually a fair spot. Here's the biggest thing is I even talked on the waiver column for everybody that thinks that Josh Reynolds is just going to be Cooper Kupp. Like Josh Reynolds has some nice ability. Josh Reynolds, when he came out, still had some things to work on. He's still developing as a wide receiver. That's why we haven't seen a lot more of him. And then we did see on the field a lot of them because he had over 90% of the snaps because the Rams are still going to run wide, 3 wide no matter what. He had over 90%, but he only had 10% of the target share those 2 weeks. And you talk about, he kind of had that Ebron game, the 2 touchdowns and what was it, 3 receptions and 3 targets or 4 targets. That's the biggest concern is that the target share is not there. Yes, you can run around on the field all you want, but we talk about it with tight ends. We talk about it with other wide receivers. Just because you're on the field doesn't mean you're getting opportunities. So you can hope that that touchdown still ends up being like, hey, they look for him in the red zone, that being Jared Goff. But I think where you have him is a fair spot. I see a lot of people that want to immediately put him inside the top 25, and there's no way I'm doing that.
Well, I think the ranking for him, he's not going to be wide receiver number 42 this week. That's the problem. Like I get the
way over or way under.
He's way over or way under. Like I think that if you rank him highly, like 27 isn't cutting it. Like he's going to be wide receiver like 11, or he's going to be wide receiver 62. I would lean towards him being closer to 62 than 11.
Yeah, I actually have him at 49 as of today.
Yeah, so I think you're either all in or all out this week, and maybe you see adjustments, and maybe this game isn't going to be indicative because they're playing against the Chiefs. It's like we mentioned earlier, the highest point total in basically my lifetime for any game. So just grabbing pieces of it, I understand that, and like that's why I do have him ranked over someone like John Ross, who's probably in a better situation, worse matchup, but he's like legit boomer bust.
But I was actually looking at that. I was going to say I would have John Ross in front of him. Actually, I do. John Ross, Devin Funchess, and I think that might be it. I think those are the only 2 that I have in front of him.
I think that's a conversation that I understand your side of the argument on that. For me, I would just take the point total game and just get access to that offense. Like Cincinnati's offense, what did they lose by like 70 million points last week? They threw the ball 23 times.
Yeah, that's fair, but I think that was kind of more. I don't expect that to happen again this week, too, especially in this matchup. And then the other one is it's more about Devin Funchess too. I mentioned it. This Detroit passing game went to pass defense went to utter dog crap since they signed Damon Harrison or traded for him. And also, they're missing most of their secondary. Like even if Slay comes back, they're still missing most of their secondary.
Well, here's one. This is Garion's not here, but this is the Garion stat that he keeps pointing out, and it keeps proving to be true in these Lions games is that they're so slow in game neutral situations and games that are decided by or when the score is 7 points or fewer. They're the slowest team in football. So they've gone completely the opposite of almost what they were under, since Matt Patricia has become their coach, they've just played a lot slower. There's an emphasis on running the ball, taking time off the clock, that the upside for that offense isn't as high. And conversely, on the other side, in these close games, it just detracts from the overall number of plays that you can run against them. And we know Carolina's going to run the ball, and we know that they're going to run the ball with Cam a lot and do a lot out of the backfield. This game is a pretty high game total. It's like 50. I think this is an under game unless Carolina just shellacks them, which definitely in the cards here against this awful Detroit team, at least the way they've been playing the past month. But I just think this could be a sneaky, low-scoring game.
It definitely could be. I think I'm looking for some touchdown upside, which I'm not trying to chase it because I don't like chasing touchdowns. But everything you said is true, and it's a valid point. Funchess for this opportunity here. That's just what I'm looking for, is that the Lions' pass defense has just been miserable. But yeah, I mean, to your point, maybe they win more games if they stop waiting until the fourth quarter to decide that, hey, we might want to try and score something.
I agree. Just like, hey, you know what we should do? And it's like, God bless Carrion. He's getting the touches we all want him to get now. But like, just bomb it to Kenny Golladay every time. Who cares? You suck anyway.
I don't get this. Is like, especially they traded away Golden Tate, and I guess that was because they just don't want to pass at all anymore. Period. I mean, Matthew Stafford's been miserable this year. Yeah,
and that line has been atrocious. Which the first 5 weeks it was pretty good. It's really strange.
Yeah, they have a lot of pieces that you would say they should be better. I mean, it's still is unless Ricky Wagner did he get hurt? I forget. Anyway, move on.
I have Taylor Gabriel at 56. I have Miller up inside the top 40 in the late 30s.
Yeah.
Is that's the right move, right? Miller over Gabriel now?
Oh yeah, the Gabriel that was done a couple weeks ago. That was fun. We had our time. The same thing with Adam Humphries. Is like we do this every single year. We had some fun. It was nice. We enjoy the time together, but it's over.
If Sammy Watkins doesn't play, are you looking at like DeMarcus Robinson, Chris Conley, any of those pieces again, just to get exposure to that game? If you have an empty spot, you need someone to pick up off the waiver wire, those guys will be available. Would you roll the dice on them?
Yeah, I would go Conley before I went with Robinson, but I mean, Robinson's got the touchdown upside. Hell, it might be Demetrius Harris. So you never know. That's the thing, though, is when you start getting into this conversation, I mean, we're talking about if you need somebody to pick up, if you're in this situation, you're probably out there and saying, oh, do I want Curtis Samuel or Cole Beasley? Like, I would just roll the dice and Chris Conley hopefully scoring, maybe even twice.
Any other receivers you want to talk about?
I think we're good. Your boy Brandon LaFell-Sexwell getting respect.
Well, hopefully he doesn't get locked down by Patrick Peterson. Like that's a legitimate concern on this team.
That's a good point. I mean, that is the number one wide receiver. So
yeah, so it could be Seth Roberts week.
That is true. And I guess where do you have Equinemius?
I had him down, way down. I had him number 80 in the rankings. I should probably bump him up, right?
Yeah, with Randall Cobb out. There's another desperation throw.
Yeah, Inman. He seems to be running as the wide receiver too for Indy, although they only throw to TY and tight ends.
No, I don't know why we're doing this again. Like the Dontrell Inman we do this all the time. He's actually in that he was Taylor Gabriel before Taylor Gabriel was Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah, remember? I went through this the other day. I was trying to remember Malcolm Floyd's name, and I just couldn't. Do you remember Dontario Alexander?
Yes.
He was so legit.
Oh, wait, that was the other one, like Sarah Jr.
Seji Ajira Tutu. He's still on he's still on a team right now.
Is he really?
Yeah.
What team?
He is.
You gotta be like the Jets with like their 50,000 other wide receivers. Are you sure you didn't get cut?
I thought he was on the Eagles, but maybe he's not. No, he's no longer in the league. My memory's just gone.
It's all those drugs you're on to stay healthy.
Of course. I mean, it's all the drugs I'm on to make myself unhealthy, and then all the drugs I have to put myself on to be healthy. So it's right. I'm just in a drug fuse right now. It's not good for me. Quarterbacks. Let's talk about those. Number 1, I have Mahomes. Number 2,
I have what?
Yeah, I know. Big shocker there.
Shocker.
Now that the game's not in Mexico City, he can't throw the ball 120 yards in the air. So I was thinking about bumping him down, but I go Mahomes, Wentz, Breeze, Goff, and then Cam. Those are my top 5. I really like Wentz this week a lot. This is the perfect game script for him, and he's been good anyway. Like, they can't run, so they're just going to throw.
I actually wrote about him and brought him up in the pod again this week too. Is the funny thing is you could pretty much buy low on him still if your deadline hasn't passed, because for whatever the reason is, people haven't noticed what he's been doing over the past couple games. Like it was the past 5 or 6 games. It's mid-20s. It's multiple touchdowns every single game. It's just he's getting glossed over. People haven't been paying attention. Then Carson Wentz is Carson Wentz.
He is, and even like the mobility is not all the way back, but he's still running just a little bit. Even when they get near the goal line, he has the nose for the end zone, but he's not pulling it down and just going with it. I think that's going to have to eventually flip once he trusts that knee all the way back. But you're right. Like the points have been there every single week. They can't run, even when they're in close. They can't rush for a touchdown, so they have to throw. And if Zach Ertz is catching 10 passes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns every week, I mean, that's pretty good for Wentz too.
Yeah, and they're both of them, Wentz and Luck. People just are still so reluctant to use either one of them, and I just don't get it.
Well, Luck has been a superstar this year, so I have him at number 6. Rodgers and Wilson playing against each other Thursday night, 7 and 8. Deshaun Watson, then Mitch Trubisky at number 10. The sleeper I have this week, I think Dak Prescott, who I have at number 13, is a very capable streamer here.
I am with you. I actually have him at 16. Here's my only concern is the numbers have definitely been better the past 4 weeks, but if you take out rushing touchdowns, and that's what my caveat is, it's like you can't just take it away, but you have to understand that Dak's value does come from rushing. And 3 of those games where he scored 20 plus points all came with a rushing touchdown. The one 16-point game he had, no rushing touchdown. That's still a nice floor 16, but I'm just saying for the people that are like plugging him into every single cash game, like I think he's going to be very highly owned this week because so many people are talking about him. He's a great plug-in sleeper for this week, but let's still chill in the fact that understand that Dak Prescott without the rushing is still just kind of a mediocre passer.
Okay. Would you play Lamar Jackson or Josh Rosen?
I would go, well, if we get Lamar Jackson starting.
Yeah. If Lamar Jackson starts.
I'll tell you right now, if Lamar Jackson is starting, he is going all the way up in front of, I would put him 13 and bump everybody else down.
Really? You'd put him above Dak?
Yes. The rushing upside is that.
I wouldn't.
The rushing upside is that high with him. Again, I'm going to go back to it. He is Robert Griffin. Robert Griffin ran for, what was it, like 700 yards in 15 games as a rookie. That's what we're talking about with Lamar Jackson. He's getting a free touchdown plus. He can throw the ball. Now, granted, half of them are probably going to be off target like Marcus Mariota a few weeks ago, but you give him Dak's passing, which is basically what he is, 200 yards and a touchdown. He's got more rushing upside, and that's what I'm going with.
I'm dubious 200 yards and a touchdown is a floor for Lamar Jackson. I think it might be way under that. Yeah.
I think you're underestimating his ability. People are too scared already.
Listen, I'm not underestimating his ability, but as a first start as a rookie coming in, he's only been running these weird packages all season. Like the caveat with Griffin was, I mean, if you just gauge arm strength between Griffin as a rookie and Lamar as a rookie, Griffin had a cannon arm.
He did. Well, he still pretty much got most of it left.
He does. Like, put it this way, I would rank Griffin at 13 over Lamar Jackson. I feel safer with Robert Griffin as my quarterback than Lamar Jackson.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you want to have Dak, that's fine. I'd still start him over Fitzmagic and Mariota, and I'd still start him over all those guys.
I think Fitzmagic's still a fine play this week, by the way.
Nah, stop with the Fitzmagic stuff.
He threw for 400 yards last week.
Yeah, and how many points did they score? How many points did he score?
I don't know what he ended up scoring. What did he score, like 16?
I don't think it was that high.
I remember he snuck out like a decent DraftKings day when all was said. They're not. Put it this way: if they gain 500 yards of total offense again,
they're not going to.
They're playing the Giants.
Yeah, that's the Giants' pass defense is still respectable.
Come on.
If you're gonna give me 400 as the over/under, I'll go to Vegas right now.
Sure, but if they put it this way, if they gain if they gain half of what they did last week, their implied point total should be around like 16 instead of 3. So it just seemed like a lot of bad luck last week.
But he got 15.7.
Wait, for throwing no touchdowns is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen again this week.
I think because, I'll take the over/under on half a touchdown.
Because here's why. I've just meant the bad day is because Robert Griffin, Ryan Fitzpatrick has now moved back into we make apologies for him and we're trusting him, which is the immediate time when he goes to crap.
I'm not trusting him. I have him at number 15 in these rankings. There's plenty of capable quarterbacks you can play over him. All
right, so then where are you putting Lamar Jackson at? 16?
No, I have Lamar Jackson ranked as if he's starting number 21.
Oh, that is too low.
No,
way too low.
No, that might be generous.
Way too low.
Yeah, he's not in the bottom 4. There's the bottom 3 this week of guys you really don't want to play: Dalton, Smith, and Carr. Outside of that, like everyone from Mariota down to Eli is interchangeable to me.
Yeah, so I have Lamar Jackson at 27 with Joe Flacco playing. Like I'd still like roll him out there as he could potentially play, but I'll move him, but he's going to go way up.
Tight ends. I have Michael Roberts as probably in. Eric Swoop is probably out. So enjoy that. I know that's detrimental to constructing your lineups this week and who you need to pick up and drop from the waiver wire. Bye week's much more of a problem here. I have Kelsey at 1.
James O'Shaughnessy in.
I do have James O'Shaughnessy. He's number 18. Great value on DraftKings too. $2,600. Kelsey and Ertz 1-2. Olsen at number 3. OJ Howard at number 4. Burton, Ingram, Doyle, Hooper, Hierman, Eric Ebron. Jared Cook has been ranked by Fantasy Pros at number 11. There he is, not making a catch on that pitcher. That's why he's in worst place. Uzma at 12. Ricky Seals-Jones, Jimmy Graham, who may or may not play. I'll have this updated for Thursday, but he hasn't been practicing yet this week, but we'll see about him. Ben Watson, Jordan Reed, Vance McDonald, O'Shaughnessy, Vanette, Jonnu Smith. It's rough treading out there.
It definitely is. Nick Vanette I have at 19 too, because it might be him, and as you said, it might be Ed Dixon's turn.
Or it just reverts back into being, because I think every time David Moore catches a touchdown, the tight ends don't do anything. Yeah,
that's true. That could be the other way. Where's Rudolph?
Oh, did I forget to put Rudolph back in?
Yeah. I mean, does it matter?
I apparently haven't. I have him at number 33. Yeah, that's a huge glaring mistake on my part when I come back. And so please rank Kyle Rudolph for me. Where should he go?
16 is where I have him.
Rudolph. So that would be one spot between Ben Watson and Jordan Reed. I'd still play Jordan Reed. I would play Jordan.
I would.
I'm giving Jordan Reed one more shot here. It's a good matchup.
Well, in PPR, he hasn't been miserable. He's been Willie Snead of tight ends. He's still getting you points. I would put him behind Jordan Reed too. I would definitely put him, but Kyle Rudolph hasn't done anything.
No, not at all. I think it's 350 yards and 2 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, somebody asked me in a full point PPR, would you drop him for Reed? I said, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then if Reed sucks, you can drop him for Kyle Rudolph. I mean, if these are the players that are on your waiver wire, who cares?
That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll put him one spot after Jordan Reed. Good catch on that. When I moved the guy, because I have my ranking sheet, and I moved the guys out on bye, moved the guys back in from bye, and they're all cluttered together. Apparently, I just overlooked him when I put him back in, because he's right with the guys that were off last week, like Jordan Thomas and Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle. I just kept them all bunched together, because who cares? It's the back end of tight end. You're never playing these losers anyway.
No, it definitely is. And the only one I have a problem with is Uzma, just because he's been getting left out way too much. I know all the snaps are there.
He
that goes
has
back to
been, but like, I'll still gamble that they might throw to him if they get in close.
Yeah, I really like Ricky Seals-Jones this week, and you saw it last week. He already got involved. He got what, 7 targets, something like that. I mean, they're getting him back in the mix. I know Jimmy Graham's situation is going to be answered tomorrow night or tonight, whenever people are watching this, but I don't know. The Uzuma is one of those. It's the Josh Reynolds situation. That's fine. You're out there for 98, and that's what he was. He missed 2 snaps that 1 week, but 0. He's not even being used now.
Yeah, it's really strange. But hopefully they pass more this week and more than 23 times.
Well, that's the other thing. It's not the best matchup.
No, it's not. But although the Ravens are 19th per DVOA against tight ends, it's the one spot on their defense where they are somewhat susceptible.
That's fair. Like I said, I would go Seals-Jones, Graham if he starts, and then I'd actually consider Reed, but that's right around. I wouldn't go far.
All right, let's talk defenses. I have Pittsburgh at number 1 against Jacksonville. The Pittsburgh D has been surprisingly legit after starting the year off so horribly. They've been good for the past month, and they're getting to the passer again, which is the most essential part of a fantasy defense. So boom, Pittsburgh's number 1, Zona's number 2 at home against Oakland, who have just been a good fantasy defense outside of 2 weeks when they got lit. But other than that, pretty good. Baltimore, Chicago, Houston, Carolina, Washington, the Chargers, Indy, Tennessee, then Denver, Jacksonville, Seattle, Tampa, Green Bay. It sucks because all the teams we like to stream against and play crappy defenses against, they're all on bye week. No Browns. We got no Browns, no Bills, no Jets, no Dolphins. It sucks. No Niners.
I know. I actually picked up the Titans in one of my leagues, and I don't love it because they're facing the Colts and Andrew Luck, who's been on fire, as we talked about before. But at least I'm looking at the Titans, and I'm looking at them and for the rest of the season too, especially after this week. And that's one defense where people are like, oh, if I can only pick one defense for the rest of the year, you want the Titans or the Redskins or those, you're talking about the streamers wise. And I look at it, I'm saying, you know what? I actually take the Titans because their ceiling might not be a Redskins ceiling, but I know they're not going to kill me. That's the one good thing about it. At least I'm not getting negative points with them.
True. And the Redskins defense, I think, really has been hurt by the offensive line injuries. I know that seems kind of strange, but as a corollary of the offense can't continue to extend these drives, their defense is always on the field now, and it's really hurt them.
It definitely has. You know what the best part about, they talk about laughing at people with the Derrick Henry situation. I just enjoy also. Hey, look, I'm an a-hole sometimes. You know that. I like laughing at the people that have the Jaguars defense when we continue to see them not even ranked in the top 10.
I think they could be a sneaky DraftKings play this week in case they just show up to play Pittsburgh because they've done it the last 2 times and just
in Pittsburgh.
They went into Pittsburgh last season, although Pittsburgh dropped 42 on them. I mean, they did drop 45 on Pittsburgh. So it was kind of strange. Either way, I obviously don't love them this week. In a week full of buys, they're 12th at home. So That's not great. But I don't know. This is why you don't reach for a defense. This is why you don't buy into last year's defensive numbers. And just because a defense is a really good defense doesn't mean they're a good fantasy defense.
Which is something we say all the time. I mean, remember, it was the Eagles were inside the top 5 3 years in a row, despite giving up yards and yards and touchdowns every single game because they had aggressive corners that pick the ball off and you get picks and you turn them into touchdowns a couple times. And that's what happens. So, yeah, I don't think it's a great week for streaming defense, especially as you said. I think if you're really looking, I see Carolina still hanging out there a little bit. And like we just talked about before, Stafford's been miserable. The only concern you have is, as you mentioned, because they might be a good defense, there might be such a slow game that you don't even get a lot of turnovers. I'd say the only other one on streaming is the Falcons, but I don't even feel great about that.
I would go to the Bucks. They're top 10 in adjusted sack rate right now, and with McCoy back, they're actually getting to the passer. And
that's a fair one.
When in doubt, when you have no options, streaming against Eli, not the worst case scenario.
I don't know. He showed up last week because they can't even tank right. Good old Giants.
Having fun with the Giants. Always good times.
Bastards.
I know. They're killing you, aren't they?
No, 100%. I was actually actively rooting against them for that final drive, and oh god.
So who are they going to have as their starting QB next year? I think you're going to see like back-to-back weeks. Who's it going to be? Like, are they going to trade for Mullins? Will they trade for like Derek Carr, or will it be Fitzmagic, or is it going to be Jameis?
No, well, that's actually the one I'm most interested in, is that the Jameis and the Bucks move on from him, because you were looking at, we talked about before, it might be Winston or Mariota, because both of them might not have their extra year taken in. But Mariota is now that he's healthy, it looks like that was the only problem, was he legitimately wasn't able to hold on to the ball. Maybe Winston, I don't know. I don't even know at this point. And the worst part about it is I'm not even that excited about Herbert. If he does come out, I think he does. I don't believe this. I'm going back to school for another year when you have zero competition, almost zero competition besides the kid from Duke at the quarterback position. You're going to be a top 5 pick, probably the first pick off the board, because you're a quarterback. You're coming out of the draft. But I would almost just rather them hold over a year and then get Tua next year.
Yeah, that would make more sense. But now you're really wasting the prime core of these skill guys.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said the Giants were such idiots in what they did. But we all know that that's hindsight. That for them, it's what we tried to tell them this entire time. But nobody, they didn't want to listen. Eli was ready to contend. They're ready to be back in the Super Bowl mix. I think the perfect one, but I have a feeling other teams are thinking the same, is go sign Teddy for a 1-year holdover and then draft Tua. But that's putting a lot of this needs to happen for this to happen type of thing.
I think that Teddy's going to get a bigger deal, to tell you the truth, in a 1 year. You
do?
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's going to be like, screw this. We're giving you 4 years.
Jacksonville's going to sign Derek Carr.
Oh, God. Derek Carr should not be a starting quarterback next year.
We say that all the time, and he still is. I mean, it's the NFL. Andy Dalton is just the perfect example of why I always say this. It's like you're either stuck with an Andy Dalton or like an Eli Manning, who's like just good enough to win you some Super Bowls, potentially, if the team is good enough, or you just go for it all and potentially miss out, and then you find your franchise at some point.
Yeah, just keep rolling it through until you find one of these stud guys.
That's my what I would do.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with you. Either be really good or really bad. That's the way to play it. Jake Ciely, follow him on Twitter at AllInKid, and subscribe to his
really bad.
What's that? Subscribe to his podcast, the All In Sports Podcast. Tell everyone where to find it.
Yeah, I'll tweet it out, but you can go to iTunes. It's All In Sports on the podcast section. I keep it on Podbean, and of course, it's on the same things you have, like the Google Plays, the Stitchers, and the iHearts, and all that type of stuff. But I'll tweet out the link as always, and then I still have here, I'll even show you the little mini signed football helmet for Michael Thomas giveaway that I have going on. Like that.
How do people get in on the giveaway?
They do what they do for your show when they do giveaways. Go rate, review, subscribe, and all that stuff. Preferably 5 stars, as you say.
Exactly. So go do that. I will be appearing on the show sometime in the near future.
Yes, before the end of the month. Yay. Actually, my birthday week.
Oh, don't say birthday week. Come on. I had
week of my birthday. I wasn't saying like I celebrate a birthday week.
I had an ex-girlfriend who was very fired up for her birthday week, and I had to put a huge kibosh on that. Probably why she's my ex-girlfriend.
I'm definitely glad that you did. No, I wasn't calling. I should have said week of my birthday. Trust me, I am not one of those people that even has that much going on for the day of.
Yeah, I'm not big on birthdays. Not really my jam.
And what celebration on, like, congratulations, you came out of your mother's womb. You were born.
It's congratulations, you're alive. I feel like being alive is prize enough.
I feel like that's the least you could do, is still just be alive.
It is the bare minimum of what you can do in this world. Yes, just continue to be alive, move on from there.
Yeah, you exist. Thumbs up.
All right, you can check out my rankings on DKPlaybook.com or in the description of this video. And remember to support the Pat Mayo Experience by rating, reviewing, subscribing, and downloading on any of the platforms on Apple or Android. You can find it up there for free under the Pat Mayo Experience. Like the episode, leave your DK handle, and give me a stat line on Josh Reynolds for a chance to get $20 DK. I will announce the winners live on Monday's show, and I'm live on Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well. Thank you all for watching. Good luck in Week 11. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!